What's up, everybody? Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com coming to you from Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium, Fayetteville, Arkansas. 13 days of Razorback fall camp in the books. Getting this place ready. Hope the noises don't bother you guys. There's people driving trucks around, power washers. It sounds like a jackhammer, something beeping over here. Power washers, as I said. Somebody's got a blower over here. Men and women doing work, getting this place ready for Razorback football. 15 days away from Razorback football, in fact. Not here. Not in Razorback Stadium in Little Rock, UAPB, but won't be long. You got some fresh paint down here in the south end zone. The field just got painted. They started on that yesterday. They're working the Jumbotron, as you can see up there, trying to get the kinks out, getting things ready for football. I mean, just over 2 weeks, guys. What have we learned about this team in the last 13 practices? Spoke to all 10 assistant coaches and coordinators. Spoke to Sam Pittman a few times. Probably 30 players, watched about 6 hours probably worth of football practice. What do we know about this team? What's different from the last walk and talk that we had on day 5? I'll say this, so I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. For a guy that predicted like 4 or 5 wins in the offseason and, you know, at least said like 4 wins is way more likely than 8 wins, it wouldn't surprise me at the same time if they did have some success this year. And I say that knowing how differently teams are built now than they were a few years ago due to the transfer portal. The thing is, Arkansas also has that access to the transfer portal. They're able to build their team with veteran depth, and I like the pieces that they put together. I just know the road that's coming up. I know the adversity that's coming up, and adversity is on the horizon. You know, it's easy to make the mistakes of, like, they look good here, they got this there. Injuries are going to happen. What happens when some serious injuries happen? Do they have the depth that they need to get over that? You know, and a lot of it's going to start with Taylor Green at quarterback. Is he a gamer? Does he have the killer instinct? Fourth quarter, these early games are going to be very important. A lot of games decided then. Everybody's got everything to play for at that point. I'll say this. The energy from Bobby Petrino has rubbed off on these guys. And maybe not so much the energy. The idea that he's mellowed out's a little ridiculous. I see him out there. He's getting after people, very demanding, very detail-oriented, as we know. But how does Taylor Green accept all that? Like, how does he process what Bobby Petrino's teaching him? Does he have that killer instinct? Because a lot of it's going to come down to that quarterback, what he can do. How much does having Bobby Petrino in your ear up till 15 seconds before the snap, how much is that going to benefit him? I mean, I think that's a huge advantage for offenses, especially like first-year offenses. So that's going to be a key piece of it. But offensive line, the protection up front, no quarterback's going to look good without good offensive line play. While there is no doubt in my mind they are significantly better than they were last year, are they a good offensive line? I just don't know about that. I don't know yet. And I'll say this too. I don't like the fact that Patrick Kudus has missed 11 straight days of practice. I don't like it at all. I think they finally got the move right with moving Marion Harris at left guard in his place. Marion's more of a tackle, but you know, I'd rather have him at left guard than right guard, I would think. He's 6'7", 300 pounds, even though he played guard like in the Liberty Bowl years ago, but he was like 350 then, so a lot different build. But so I think that they've got the right move. But to me, they're like an injury away from me going, whoa, on the offensive line. And they're having to move some pieces together. Sometimes you ask a coach, like, a question you already know the answer to. I already knew that Eric Mateos wasn't going to be happy having 13 scholarship offensive linemen, but I asked him that because I want to know. I want the quote, right? But I think that that's kind of what they're dealing with, because not all 13 of those scholarship players are ready to go out there and play. They're just not. They're not ready. They're not either SEC level or they're just very young. And so that's why I think you're seeing a little bit of struggle finding an answer there. And I would like to see Nichols stay at center. I would like to see Wiggins stay at center. I mean, you have to have that mentality as a backup center that you're ready to go in like the backup quarterback is. Like, you're preparing as if you're the starter if you're Wiggins. And so having him at guard and your backup center, I just don't think that's the right move, and I think they probably have realized that as well. So yeah, an injury away. I think I would be worried about that. As I said, adversity is on the horizon, and things are going to happen. So players are going to get dinged up here and there. They say they think they got 7-8 ready. We'll see. Well, hopefully they're right. I do like this wide receiver core. Is there a first round, or is there a top 5 round NFL draft pick? I don't know that. If there was one, maybe Isaiah Satania grows into that. Isaiah has definitely gotten bigger, thicker. He just glides though. He's really so smooth. And the run after the catch there, and Bobby Petrino brought that up, and I see that out there too. So often you see wide receivers, when they make a catch, they make a face like you know what I mean? Like, the ball's coming, and you can see, and I see in my still photography that I take pictures of, you'll see a guy like doing that. And Satania is just kind of like, just calm and steady, doesn't leave his feet. Guys unnecessarily jump up when there's so much to do after the catch. And Satania just catches it, and it's just very smooth. So if there was a guy like that, and Petrino, I asked him, going back to, again, questions you know the answer to, did you think that Satania was maybe misused a little bit last year? And he says, he doesn't look back at the past, he just looks ahead. That's what Coach, I know very well that he has looked back at last year's footage, probably before he took the job, to see where the personnel is, right? And I know that he told somebody, hey, what's going on with Isaiah Satania, because this guy, right? So again, sometimes you ask the question you know the answer to just for the quote. But Satania might be that guy. And I really like Andrew Armstrong. Maybe he's a back-end NFL guy. Tyrone Broden, speaking of misuse last year, the fact that he averages 8 yards a catch at 6'7", one of the 5 fastest guys on the team, made probably the catch of camp with that one-handed grab early on. Maybe him too. But like, how often do you see like a 6-year senior, as a high NFL draft pick, right? At any position, especially wide receiver. So, but I do think they have a lot of guys out there that are very capable. And sometimes with college football, that's what you need, is like capable, competent guys that have each other's back, that get along. And we'll talk about, the DAPs and stuff like that. And I know they're keeping track of DAPs. They have Eli Henderson, who's on medical hardship, like keeping up of them. They want 100 every day. I threw a couple to the offensive linemen. I love the conversation we had with Eric Mateos and Joshua Braun and Fernando Carmona. I loved that day. I thought those were great interviews. But it's important to have those kind of connections, and it's something that was lost. It's something that's been lost, guys. Like, we talk about culture and buy-in and unity and brotherhood and all these kind of things every single year. It's the same thing every year, right? But you kind of have to look between the lines, and am I buying it a little bit more? Yeah, maybe I'm buying it a little bit more this year. Maybe I believe that that's actually the case. Maybe the idea that I've had that, if they struggle these first 3 tough games away from Arkansas with, at Oklahoma State and at Auburn and Texas A&M and Arlington, that they would let go of the rope and just kind of start pointing fingers. And maybe I'm not buying that narrative anymore. Maybe that's a narrative that I created. In fact, I think maybe that was an original idea. But I don't think it's far-fetched to see that, like they did let go of the rope last year. Who's my coach going to be? Is Coach Pittman going to get fired? Am I going to the transfer portal? Who's interested? All those kinds of ideas start running through people's heads. And next thing you know, you're getting your tails kicked by an Auburn team that's not very good in Fayetteville. And then getting smoked by Missouri, which maybe had more right to do that. But I don't know. That's a lot of points. And you lost KJ Jefferson, yada, yada. That's last year. But yeah, you could see all that. But maybe I would think that maybe they do buy in a little bit more. But yeah, just having human connections is important. Reach out and touch somebody. There's no way to say that without it sounding like it sounds. But you guys know. I mean, putting your hands on somebody's shoulder. Hey, brother. A celebratory hug with your fist in the air. Picking you up when you're down. I got you, man. Those kinds of things are important. You can say a lot with just a simple connection like that. And I'm not saying like the whole culture is built around fist bumps, but things like that add up, right? They do. And that's, they talked about like Steve Nash, how many times he interacts with his players and stuff, and stuff like that. So, but anyway, running backs, Jaquindon Jackson has got that chip on his shoulder. I talked about how he always did, like in the last time, like he caught a 15-yard pass in the scrimmage in the spring, and I asked him about it. He's like, yeah, people don't think I can catch. I asked him about playing through injuries. He's like, yeah, people think I'm injury prone, like turns it around, and he did that. Somebody said, you're kind of a power back. Oh, I'm not a power back. I'm versatile. I can do a lot of things. People think I'm only this or that. He's got that kind of attitude, which that works for players too. And I've talked about that a lot, but that's the kind of attitude that Jaquindon has. And Braylon Russell's very different. Braylon's always kind of cutting up, and people know when he walks into the room kind of deal. He's going to play a role for them. They've got a pretty diverse group, of running backs. But I really think when we're all said and done, we'll be talking a lot about Braylon Russell, who's got a lot of tools. Jaquindon said he thinks he'll be All-American one day, and I've heard that before. But Braylon's got a lot of tools, 6'1", 253, and I really like Jaquindon. I just see a workhorse, tough back that feels like everybody disrespects him, and he's got something to prove to himself and you and everybody else. So. And DeBinion too. DeBinion to me needed a hole to open up before he could be really effective, and just it wasn't there much last year. And there were some things like with the pin and pull that maybe gave him a little bit of problem early on, getting adjusted to that kind of stuff. So, I mean, what else is there to say about tight ends? We know Luke Haz is a stud. Marquise Gums, I think, is going to be as much improved as anybody on the team. Defensive line isn't quite as deep as it was last year, but many of the same players back. Landon Jackson's an all-SEC guy, first-team coaches. Eric Gregory, probably the most undervalued guy on the team. Cam Ball, I think, has a future at the next level. And that other spot, I'm not saying like Anton Junkaj. I'm not seeing like a 15-sack guy out there yet. That's not what, he had 15 sacks coming out of Albany, Division I AA, but I mean, he's going to be a good player, I think, for him. And Nico, that's good competition there. Quincy Rose, I think, is really coming on, and Ian Gifford is so much ability. So maybe not quite as deep, but a solid 2 deep. And they like the freshmen, Charlie Collins, and Kavion Henderson. I'm not a huge fan of freshman defensive end. I just feel like sometimes they get buckled. I want to talk about linebacker, though. Like, we can go over every single position. I guess that's what I'm doing. I never know where these things are going to go. But linebacker, I think it's very telling that there are times out there where they're trying to get 4 linebackers out on the field. That says the world to me. Even Marcus Woodson said a couple days ago that linebacker was their deepest group on defense. That's, the secondary coach saying that. So, a lot of times that's going to take one of his guys off the field. But the fact that they do stuff with getting 4 linebackers out there, when they do their mint front with Brad Spence as the buck or the wide 9, Sam, whatever you want to call him. In the spring, that was more Nico as the first group guy. And, through camp, it's been Brad Spence as the first group guy. Working Larry Worth at nickel. Switzer is kind of a, by the way, Switz Army Knife, great nickname. But Switzer's kind of an in-between guy, 6 foot, 220, 5'11", 220. Maybe he's a more traditional, old-school safety, but they're working him safety, linebacker, nickel, just all over the place. I think you would classify him as a safety. But anyway, what I noticed more than anything, more than lip service and stuff, I like the physical looks of the guy. Steven Dix, I think, is put together really well. I think looks like the part out there. And I mean, Brad Spence too, man. And Bradley Shaw's another guy that's coming, a young linebacker that's coming on. So I like that group overall. I think, we always talked about, you hope with the linebackers. We talked about that a lot in the offseason. You hope they're going to be good. You hope they're going to be this or that. But you just don't know. I'm leaning a little bit more towards thinking they're going to be pretty good overall as a group. And again, pretty good, right? Me saying that's, for the SEC is like probably saying they're going to be average, an average group. And, I don't want anybody to mistake my energy, or I don't know if I have energy or not, but for me, I feel like I do right now. But that's just because I love coming out here. I love football, love watching football practice, love talking to all these guys. I mean, we talked to like 30 players so far, all 10 assistant coaches, Sam Pittman. I love being able to come out here and do that, even if I feel in my heart that, this is a team that could struggle this year. But again, as I started off at the top, it also wouldn't surprise me to see them have a measure of success this year. It wouldn't. They are built just like other teams are able to build their teams through the portal. They're able to add a lot. Now, there are deficiencies here and there. Injuries, I think, are going to affect Arkansas probably, in spite of the depth that they've been able to build at certain spots. If they have something pile up, then it could affect them more than other teams. And you have to consider that, because it's not just how good is your second team, but if you have a guy go down on your first or second team, it's how good is your third team, right? You start getting into that kind of talk. So secondary, yeah, I mean, I have some concerns there. I have some concerns on the offensive line and some concerns in secondary. I just, who is the other guy? It looks like the last few days it's been Marquise Robinson. It's gotten a lot hotter out here since I started. It's been Marquise Robinson, probably sweating at the other spot the last 3 days, so that's encouraging that maybe they're starting to settle in a little bit there. Got a lot of faith in Jalen Braxton, but he's been actually battling a little bit of an injury. Is it an injury that's going to carry on to the season? Is it going to be, resolved in camp? What kind of injury is it, right? And Hudson Clark and Jaden Johnson, I think, are good enough safeties, and I don't know that either are spectacular. Hudson probably gets a lot more flack than he deserves. Jaden's had a pretty good camp. I thought Jaden was actually pretty good last year, and I'd kind of thought that maybe he had kind of letting go and would transfer after his sophomore year. I really did. So there are some questions like that, but what kind of player is Danico Slaughter for him? We talked about the nickel spot, and TJ Metcalf's supposed to be about the most improved guy that they have on defense, is what they say. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not coming out here and going like, oh, this team's going to win 8 games. That's not what I'm saying. So don't mistake my excitement for Razorback football and getting the season near and college football and everything that comes with it. I love it, So, but stay grounded. It's okay to be positive. It's better to be positive than negative, right? But if my kind of approach to it is, if they exceed the expectations, then wow, great. But I'm not setting them very high. I'm just not. And so you have to understand some of my language sometimes when I say somebody's going to be pretty good at something. I know the league that they're in. I know the competition that they're facing. I hate their schedule. But as I said at the top, maybe the narrative I said about, if things don't go just perfectly, that they would let go of the rope, maybe that's not true. Maybe they would bond together. I mean, they even bonded together last year. They lost that game against BYU that they had no business losing, and went to LSU and battled them. They didn't win, but they showed up when a lot of people thought that they wouldn't. So anyway, that's where we are right now. I like this defensive coaching staff a lot. I'm going to walk all the way over here to my backpack, I guess, instead of just wrapping up. But I like the defensive coaching staff a lot. I think Marcus Woodson and Travis Williams both. I look at those guys and I'm like, man, I can see head coach material with both of them. Love the communication on defense with all those guys, Deke Adams, Darren Wilson too. And, of course, the Bobby Petrino factor, man. The guy knows what he's doing. I mean, he is the biggest X factor possibly on this whole team, the Bobby Petrino, not just him, but the carryover he has. And again, like, you can see the players, their eyes just light up when they talk about Bobby Petrino. And, just spending an hour with Bobby Petrino and how much smarter you are after that. So that's it. That's the walk and talk today. The noise actually calmed down a little bit, but we got a lot of people in here working. Field looks great. Field looks great. They'll be on turf the first game, I guess, against UAPB. What is it, 54.5, 52.5? What was it on Bet Saracen? I saw it come out. It's a lot of points. You think back a few years ago when they played UAPB, it was 45-0 at half, and then 45-3 at the end of the game. They ran a running clock at the end of the game, if you remember also. But at the same time, Malik Hornsby was the backup quarterback then. Malachi Singleton, I think, has actually done a pretty good job. I'm anxious to see him. Hopefully that's the way it works out. You get out there, jump out on top, get those starters out. Don't show them a whole lot of what you got going for Oklahoma State. Get Malachi Singleton in there, get him some action, and have that second group. I mean, ideally you come out, you put a lot of points up, you come out in the second half with your starters for the first drive, just for the, this is how we're coming out in the second half as a preparation type of thing, and then all backups after that. So, all right, everybody, go sign up at HawgSports if you haven't done so already, HawgSports.com. You know the drill, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. We'd love to have you over there. Got a lot of great stuff coming out. That's it. All right, everybody. Trey Biddy, HawgSports.com. We'll catch you next time.